Do you know where you live? And do you know who you have over you as your king right now? Maybe this will help. So besides the obvious fact that this tower is built out of nothing but a bunch of black cubes, I want you to look right here. There's 7 pillars rising across the top. If you know anything about the 7 deadly sins and things of that sort, that should make sense to you, but that's nothing. I want you to look at these cubes here. These cubes here that have a plant growing in each one of them, fertile plants, fertility, and then the upside down triangle. You know how Donald Trump does his upside down fertility worship triangle all the time? Well, these cubes are placed 6 by 6 by 6 with 6 in the center pointed down. Everybody's like, well, that's just a big old coincidence. Well, let me show you more of his obsession with 66 and 666. Watch this. So the next thing I want you to do is look here, okay? Donald Trump's tower was originally 58 stories tall. However, purposefully, if you know anything about numbers and Freemasonry and all the occultism and their obsession with 3s, 6s, and also the 13, which ties into the Nephilim, okay? You'll know why this matters. He skipped floors 6 through 13 so that purposely his tower would not have 58 stories, but would in fact have 68 stories. He did that so he could place his penthouse suite on the 66th floor with 2 others right above it, starting at the 66th floor. And also, if you look at it, he's exaggerated his numbers several times to be 33,000 square feet, purposefully. But I want to show you about this 66th floor penthouse suite specifically. What I want you to do here is take a look around this 66th floor penthouse suite that is dedicated to the sun god Apollo, son of Zeus. All right? So not only do you see paintings and murals all over this whole thing dedicated to Apollo, son of Zeus, and also Eros and Physique and other things of that sort, but you also see here dead center of the table is Muhammad Ali's tribute book. And if you do just the slightest little bit of research on Muhammad Ali, you would notice that Muhammad Ali went by the name and title the greatest of all time, and he also referred to himself as Apollo, okay, which is where you get Apollo Creed from, and Apollo in the Rocky series, who was modeled after Muhammad Ali himself, okay? So I want you to see this, but I want you to see something else. One of his biggest art pieces in his whole 66th floor golden penthouse suite is what's above me here, this mural, which is literally a painting of Apollo, the sun god, and his chariot flying across the heavens. But if you're still not convinced about the Apollo thing, let me keep going. What about Trump's golden age? I know you've heard all about that. The golden age of America, which he told you begins now many times. Let's look more into that, just to help you out a little bit. Let's see who else was tied into the golden age of Rome. Here, I'm going to read this to you and let you put it together yourself. Apollo is linked to the golden age, particularly in Augustan Rome, as the god whose worship symbolized the restoration of peace, order, cultural flourishing after civil wars, with Augustus promoting him as Rome's tutelary, I don't know how to say that word, deity, to usher in a new era of prosperity, mirroring mythical golden ages, associated with his domains of light, harmony, music, prophecy, and arts. You know, like his obsession with art everywhere. How about this? Symbol of renewal. Emperor Augustus used Apollo's cult to represent the end of Rome's civil strife and the beginning of a new idolized era, akin to a mythical golden age of Saturn. Apollo's association with law, reason, and cosmic harmony aligned with Augustus's visions of stable, well-ordered Roman state. Now, I want to remind you, Donald Trump is the 45th and 47th president. 4 plus 5 is 9. 4 plus 7 is 11. You know the occult's obsession with 9/11. Well, here's Revelation 9:11. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath the name Apollyon, Apollo, the destroyer, which literally means destroyer in general. Okay, so I wanted to show you that, but wait, there's more. So I want to bring up this next point. You know the short horn? Well, he's given power for 3.5 years, 1,260 or 90 days, to do two things. Start off by talking about peace and great things and having a mouth that speaks great things and blasphemies for 40 and 2 months, which is 3.5 years. And no one, and I mean no one, speaks greater things than Donald John Trump, who didn't just say, "Make America great," but he actually said "great" over 42,244 times by 2020 alone. So I wonder if it's doubled or tripled by now. Being now we have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest terrorists of all times. He has the greatest hair of all times, etc., etc. Fill in the space of his many great things and his speaking of great things. But don't forget, he's not just given power to speak great things, but he's allowed to do some very terrible things for the second half of his 3.5 years, after he wins us over with, literally, as it says, talks of peaceability, also talks of deception, and the word is used, flatteries. Flattering is hearing things you want to hear, not what you need to hear. But let's see what else he's supposed to do. It says, out of one of them came a little fourth horn, and it waxed exceedingly great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land, and it was waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground and stamped on them. Why does it say stamped on them? Well, I'll show you. We'll keep reading. It says here what he does and why they're stamped under his feet. Then I heard one of the saints speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? This is where I really need you to pay attention, okay? Why does it say stamped under his feet and trodden? Well, you see the word trodden right here. We'll get to it. But first let's read this. And there came another angel from the altar which had power over fire. Remember, Apollo has the power over fire. And cried with a loud cry to him that had a sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in thy sharp sickle and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. We're the grapes. We're the fruit of the vine. As the word says, he is the vine. We're the branches. We're producing fruit. Fruit in somebody else's life. The fruit is us, the grapes. Let me show you what happens to the grapes in a wine press, okay? And the angel thrust his sickle into the earth and gathered the vine of the earth and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden without, that means outside of the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horses' bridles, by the space of 1,000, and I can't see the bottom, furlongs long. I mean, it's huge, a lot of blood. See, the problem is a lot of people are sitting here waiting for a pre-trib rapture, and they're like, oh, I'm not going to go through any of this. Well, I want to tell you this, okay? We go through the wine press with wrath mixed with us, because blood is scooped up out of the streets of Babylon. Our blood is scooped up during the wine press and mixed with wrath and poured double out on all those who remain inside of Babylon. See, the short horn is given power to do something. He's given power to make war with the saints and to overcome them. Or Daniel actually says word for word, to kill them. Literally, the holy people is mentioned word for word in that killing. And actually, Peter said, judgment starts at the house of God, and if it begins at us, how much more for those that remain? It is what it is. So I want to go back to this treading of the winepress that takes place, and why we're treaded in blood first, and why you are where you are, Americans. Listen to this. A lot of people don't really know the true history of the United States. They always want to reference the red, white, and blue, which is purple, by the way, flag of America, but forget about the flag that came before the red, white, and blue flag, right before the 1776 setting loose of Lucifer the light bearer's chain on the shores of Babylon the Great, her freedom / his freedom, not yours. See, here's this flag. This was the flag before that, which is called the Gad's Den, Gadriel's house. Gadriel being the fallen angel that deceived Eve in the garden, the Gad's Den, the G of Freemasonry's house here in America that says, don't tread on me, because Mystery Babylon the Great is indeed treaded in the great wine press that is coming up via the Noahide laws. So, I want to close by saying this. Stop following the right wing and the left wing and start focusing on the dragon that's carrying both wings, okay? You've been deceived, you've been tricked, and you've been stuffed in the great melting pot known as Mystery Babylon the Great, and soon there's going to be a fire kindled underneath you that cannot be quenched. I encourage you guys to get out of there. As the word says in over 20 passages, not just stop sinning and stop going to church, because it says, "Come out of her, my people, so you do not take part in her sins nor her plagues." It literally tells you to come out of the midst of her in several passages, and also tells you to flee out of her, be as pilgrims amongst the nations, scattered as a testimony to the nations. Judgment starts at the house of God, and the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Which one are you?